Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You got DanK and Jeremy, and we're here to tell you some news stories and talking about a lot of it in Measure 91. But we got a letter to the editor of the Register Guard that Jeremy was going to tell us about.
Local old pot grows will be obnoxious by Nancy Renard of Springfield. I've been following the debate regarding legalization in regard of recreational marijuana in Oregon. It seems an oxymoron that the taxes on pot would be used for schools where its use is forbidden, for the police who have worked relentlessly against drugs of all kinds, and for drug treatment for the drug that's proposed to become legal. Ask a person who lives next to someone with a medical marijuana card if our windows are open. It smells like we have a skunk outside our house. The smell is unbearable when we're outside. Now, I don't know what she's talking about, but I've never seen that happen. Now, our neighbors are growing marijuana plants next to our fence. They've added tarps to protect their plants from the glow that comes from the street lights and the house lights. Lawmakers need to talk to property owners who are enduring the horrible smell and unsightly canopies erected to protect residential marijuana plants.
Yeah, that was a letter to the editor. It was on the 19th of September, and there were a couple interesting comments that I wanted to mention. This is from Jaded Jade. Jaded Jade wrote, "Nancy, your neighbors have both the source and the relief for your anxiety." And then Listening to Grasshoppers wrote, "Nancy Renard, here's an idea. Think of those that will be suffering less pain due to the growth of this weed. Oxymoron, using taxes from pot? I wonder what you think of the taxes from tobacco products being used for probably the same things. How about alcohol? I know it's an old argument, and yet something must be shared to put her comment into perspective." So anyway, that's the latest letter to the editor. And then again on the 22nd of September, the Register Guard came out with the following article. "State gets planning for legalized pot." The subtitle, "Authorities will face a tight deadline if voters endorse the sale and taxation of marijuana on Election Day." It's in the months before a marijuana legalization measure goes before voters, the leadership of Oregon's largest agencies quietly convened high-level meetings to discuss how to deal with it. I like to have been a mouse on that little meeting, or a fly, as they say.
Yeah.
I like to have been there. The legalization measure would touch every corner of state government, from the Oregon State Police, who no longer would make minor marijuana arrests, to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, which would administer the program. They're trying not to get caught flat-footed, OLCC spokeswoman Christy Scott said. The agencies in attendance were the Liquor Control Commission, the State Police, the Departments of Agriculture, Revenue, Transportation, and Justice, and the Oregon Health Authority. Preparation for the legalization measure, which would tax and regulate commercial recreational marijuana, also included state officials who spoke to their counterparts in legal marijuana states, Colorado and Washington. They sought to learn lessons from the mistakes of those two states. "Thank goodness Colorado and Washington went first," OLCC Chairman Rob Partridge said. "But we're different. We're way different. Colorado, like Oregon, has commercial medical dispensaries, which provided an infrastructure for the fledgling commercial recreational business. Washington, by contrast, had to build a system from scratch, a long and torturous process that has crashed the initial exuberance of legalization with the reality of grinding bureaucratic slog." Partridge and Scott said the meetings were necessary. If the measure passes, there's a short timeline between the vote in November and the January 1 kickoff of legalization. Partridge said he also expects a number of questions when the legislature convenes on February 2nd. The Yes on 91 campaign and its petitioning group, New Approach Oregon, raised at least $2.3 million when they were last required to report their fundraising in late August. The opposition did not report a single contribution or dollar spent by the August deadline. Marion County Sheriff Jason Myers, the petitioner of the opposition campaign, did not return repeated calls seeking a comment. The pro-legalization campaign will spend the money on get out the vote efforts in Oregon and has reserved $2 million in television advertising space before the general election. Throughout the state, however, no campaign is yet visible. No television or radio spots, no flyers on light poles, and no pamphlets in the mail. The OLCC estimates that the measure will generate between $17 million and $40 million in tax revenue. 40% of that money would go to schools, and 20% would go to alcohol, drug, and mental health services. The remaining dollars would be split among the state police and municipal and county law enforcement. Proponents argue that the measure would redirect police attention from minor non-violent drug crimes to more pressing issues. The current approach fuels drug cartel violence, fails to protect children, and distracts police at a time when there are unsolved murders and untested rape kits. New Approach Oregon spokesman Peter Zuckerman said in an email, Measure 91 will end decades of failed policy. The measure would permit possession of up to a half pound of pot. Oregon decriminalized marijuana in 1973 and legalized medical marijuana in 1998, and early polling shows a commercial legalization measure holding a significant lead. But opponents of commercial legalization, mostly law enforcement and the state's district attorneys, argue that full legalization is unnecessary. Clatsop County District Attorney Josh Markey said there are fewer than 100 people in prison in Oregon on marijuana-related crimes. He argues that a legal market will immediately make marijuana easier for children to access and will increase the number of intoxicated drivers. The most disturbing thing is the argument that marijuana has absolutely no downside, Markey said at a debate this month. Why would we want to introduce another drug?
I always hate that when they say that it's going to be easier for children to access, because it's not. They're making the age 21, and it's not like they're going to be able to get a fake ID that looks that good that they're going to be able to go into a pot store and get it.
Yep, and an update on the campaign contributions. I just received word that the Oregon Sheriff's Association donated $100,000 to the No on 91 campaign. So, and they claim that's not tax money, that's organization money.
Oh, sure, it's not.
So, anyway, so anyway, and they'll be coming up with the same old arguments, and which
they'll just spout out the old reefer madness that they've been spouting out the whole time.
Exactly. Yep. And this came out of the Marijuana Policy Project, a really great organization that's working on trying to end cannabis prohibition. This is a summary of Measure 9, and it's very condensed and has some great information in it. It says, for instance, what does this initiative do? The Control, Regulation, and Taxation of Marijuana and Industrial Hemp Act would remove penalties for adults 21 and older who possess, use, and grow a limited amount of marijuana. It would also direct the Oregon Liquor Commission to establish a system of strictly regulated and registered marijuana producers, wholesalers, processors, and retailers.
What are the limits on how much an individual can possess, cultivate, or purchase? Adults could possess up to 8 ounces of marijuana and could grow no more than 4 total plants at their household. Individuals 21 and older may gift up to an ounce of marijuana, 16 ounces of marijuana products in solid form, or 72 ounces of marijuana products in liquid form to other individuals 21 and older. It cannot be compensated for these transactions. Adults 21 and over would be allowed to purchase up to an ounce of marijuana, 16 ounces of marijuana products in solid form, or 72 ounces of marijuana products in liquid form from property registered businesses.
Yeah, it says what kinds of businesses will be allowed under this initiative? The Control, Regulation, and Taxation of Marijuana and Industrial Hemp Act sets up 4 new marijuana businesses. Marijuana producers will cultivate marijuana for wholesale. Marijuana processors will produce marijuana extracts and products. Marijuana wholesalers are businesses that purchase marijuana and marijuana products to sell to marijuana retailers and other non-consumers. Lastly, marijuana retailers are allowed to sell marijuana and marijuana items to individuals 21 and older.
What is the timeline? If approved by the voters, the initiative would go into effect December 3rd, 2014. Wow, that's sooner than I thought. At which point, adults who are 21 and over could possess, cultivate, and use marijuana legally under state law. By January 1st, 2016, the Liquor Commission must have adopted rules and regulations necessary to implement the Control, Regulation, and Taxation of Marijuana and Industrial Hemp Act, and must have finalized all necessary forms and applications as well. 3 days later, the Commission is required to begin accepting applications for marijuana business licenses. The Commission may not unreasonably delay the process of processing those applications.
Who would have oversight in the marijuana industry? The Oregon Liquor Control Commission will have primary oversight and regulatory authority over activities licensed by the Control, Regulation, and Taxation of Marijuana and Industrial Hemp Act. The Liquor Commission will consult with the State Department of Agriculture and the Oregon Health Authority as necessary when drafting rules and regulations. And so we'll have to pick this up after we resume after the break, and we'll run through the rest of these. But yes, Jeremy mentioned, I think we're both surprised that it's actually going to affect that early, before the end of the year actually. But at the same time, it says right here, we're not going to have stores, retail stores, ready to go until after January 2016. So it's going to be a while before you can go to a store in Oregon.
So it's going to be kind of like Washington, where do you get it for the first year?
Yeah.
See you in the second half.
Yeah. Okay, so you bet. We're going to get out of here, and we'll take a break, and we'll be back with the second half.
Do you suffer from fear of losing your election? Are you terrified that voters will discover you've done nothing to improve their lives? Maybe it's time you talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex. In clinical trials, Incarcerex has been shown effective at reducing election-related anxieties by making voters think you're doing something about the drug problem. It's simplistic and fast-acting. If your problems continue or get worse, you can always double or triple your dose of Incarcerex. Whether it's addiction, therapeutic use, or just casual use, there's an Incarcerex plan for every American. Best of all, taxpayers, not you, will foot the bill. So talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex today. Common side effects include loss of civil liberties, police corruption, racial injustice, increased terrorism, spread of HIV and AIDS, and violent crime. Bloated prisons are also a common side effect. Stop taking Incarcerex if bloating lasts longer than 20 years. If you're trying to balance the budget, keep families together, or protect human rights, Incarcerex may not be right for you. Do not mix Incarcerex with the Constitution or common sense. So start taking Incarcerex and keep pretending you're doing something about the drug problem.
Welcome back to the second half of episode 548, and we were just going through the summary of Measure 91, and we got down to how will marijuana sales be taxed. This is a real...
The first one was, what kind of controls and regulations will the industry have to adhere to? The initiative requires the Liquor Commission to enact regulations on the marijuana industry where Oregon's rules are not yet drafted. They will include regulations governing security, labeling, restricting advertising, similar to the rules in both Colorado and Washington.
That's right. And how will marijuana sales be taxed? This is a hot item that people want to know about. And this, by the way, is one of the good points of this measure, because Colorado, it's taxed on 3 different levels, and in Oregon it's only once. It says initiative levies an excise tax on all marijuana sold by marijuana producers at wholesale. Marijuana flowers are taxed at $35 an ounce. Marijuana leaves are taxed at $10 per ounce. Immature marijuana plants are taxed at $5 per plant. The excise tax is tied to the Consumer Price Index, so it will be adjusted for inflation. In addition, the rates may be reviewed and adjusted for the purposes of maximizing revenues, minimizing the illegal marijuana industry, and discouraging underage marijuana use.
Will municipalities have any role? The initiative allows municipal governments to enact zoning ordinances that will govern where and when marijuana businesses can operate. A locality may completely ban marijuana businesses if the locality's voters elect to do so via ballot question asked of the voters during a statewide general election. So at least that means that people have to vote on it. A city can't just say it's banned. I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. Where would the tax revenue go? After retaining funds sufficient to carry out its oversight obligations, the Liquor Commission is required to distribute the revenue from excise taxes in the following ways. 40% will go to the Common School Fund, and so I won't read the whole thing, but anyway, it goes to the Common School Fund. 20% will go to the Mental Health, Alcoholism, and Drug Services account. 15% will go to the State Police account. 20% will go to local law enforcement agencies. This 20% will be distributed proportionally by population. 5% will be transferred to the Oregon Health Authority for alcohol and drug abuse prevention, early intervention, and treatment services. So anyway, there's some more information on Measure 91 to hopefully help you make up your mind on what you want to do with that. And speaking about 91, we had a little happening here in Eugene that Jeremy and I both went to. They opened up the Measure 91 campaign office, which is at 1603 Oak Street. And they had an article in the Register Guard on the 16th of September, written by Christian Hill. Supporters of the measure to make pot legal open Eugene office. The campaign seeking to legalize and regulate the recreational use of marijuana in Oregon isn't taking Eugene's reputed liberal view on pot for granted. More than a dozen supporters turned out Monday evening as New Approach Oregon held a grand opening for its first, and so far only, field office in Oregon as its Yes on 91 campaign enters the homestretch. The office is near 16th Avenue and Oak Street. Lane County is an important swing county for the campaign, said Casey Houlihan, its regional organizer for Lane County. We've been encouraged by the level of support we've seen in Lane County, but we don't intend to rest on our laurels, he said. The office also will run campaign efforts in Southern Oregon and the Mid-Willamette Valley until the election on November 4th. Houlihan is the field office's only paid staff member. The office relies mostly on interns and volunteers. Houlihan said 80 people have expressed interest in volunteering for the campaign in the Eugene area alone. The campaign has been active locally since August. Volunteers have and will continue to set up tables with information at events, including art walks, and at local businesses. It will take a big push to register voters. The deadline is October 14th to get voters to return their completed ballots. The measure could make Oregon the third state after Colorado and Washington to allow adults 21 and older to use marijuana recreationally. It gives the Oregon Liquor Control Commission the job of creating a regulated system to produce, tax, process, and sell marijuana. The campaign is on the cusp of getting broader exposure. The field office's opening comes several days after the campaign reported to state regulators a $2.3 million ad buy for radio and television spots. The campaign's coffers are far short of paying for it now, but a campaign spokesman told the Willamette Week newspaper it expects to raise the necessary funds. The campaign's first ad is posted on YouTube. Records submitted by television stations to the Federal Communications Commission and reviewed by the Associated Press indicate the ads will start airing on broadcast stations next Monday in Portland and Eugene. According to expenditure reports, the campaign has raised $1.3 million and spent about $1.1 million. There appears to be little organized opposition to the measure, at least thus far. A No on 91 campaign has registered with the Secretary of State's office, but the campaign has so far reported no contributions according to the state agency's online database, which is, like I said, updated now. They have $100,000 that was just donated by the Oregon Sheriff's Association. That's an update. The supporters who attended Monday's grand opening included retirees and college students. Eugene resident Elvie Musica, 75, credits the medical marijuana she's used for 39 years for keeping her vision intact in her left eye. Diagnosed with glaucoma, she lost her right eye to surgery 27 years ago. Musica received medical marijuana through a federal program started in the 1970s that allowed a limited number of patients to use marijuana at the University of Mississippi. The program is now closed to new entrants, and Musica said she's one of the only 2 patients still receiving marijuana through the program. She said the state's prohibition of marijuana, except for those who hold a medical marijuana card, has been ineffective. She has offered to tour around the state with a campaign to spread her message. There's no point in me thinking of quitting until we change the laws, she said. Colin Hickman said he began supporting legalization after learning that drug charges, many stemming from marijuana use, are a primary reason why the United States has among the world's highest incarceration rates, and that adverse health impacts from marijuana are arguably minimal when compared to 2 popular regulated drugs, alcohol and tobacco. Regulation, said Hickman, doesn't condone marijuana use, but is a statement that the current system is ineffective. I don't think prohibition alone is doing anything to educate us, said Hickman, 20, a University of Oregon student studying biochemistry. While passion for the campaign was evident at Monday's gathering, one thing was notably missing. Nowhere in the field office was a poster or any other depiction of a marijuana leaf. Houlihan said that the absence wasn't coincidental. We're not the folks trying to consume it, he said. We're the folks trying to regulate it.
Yeah, and consume it after it's regulated.
So you see what I fixed up my own poster, so I say yes on 91, and I'm proud to show the pot leaf. That's what it's all about. It's about the pot plant, and that's a pot leaf, and it's a beautiful plant, and it's the truth.
I thought it was interesting to talk to that kid that's well, he's not a kid, teenager that's a biochemistry major, about the whole thing of how he feels about it. It was awesome how much he knew about it, and I was kind of surprised that for his age he knew so much about it, and it just puts to rest all the rumors that it's bad for you. I mean, if a scientist can look at it and say there's nothing wrong with it, what other proof do we need?
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Yeah, I was very impressed by him. It was a very intelligent young man. I hope he stays with the campaign and goes on in it. He showed some interest in the Students for Sensible Drug Policy group. I'm hoping he'll do something with that, because that's a good organization and we need somebody to run it at the U of O. So we hope for the best. Anyway, it was a great event. It was good to see you had a pretty good turnout. I only got a few bumper stickers, so I got to go get some more, but haven't got the yard signs yet either. But anyway, it's all coming, I guess. So
yeah, they
anyway,
said they were going to have yard signs. I haven't seen them yet.
No, I haven't either. And real quickly here, I got time to start another story, but we could talk real quick about the initiatives in the other states. The one in Alaska, Measure 2 allows adults 21 and over to possess up to an ounce, up to an ounce and up to 6 plants, 3 flowering. It also allows individual growers to possess the fruits of their harvest, even in excess of 1 ounce, providing the marijuana stays on the premises where it was grown. The initiative also legalizes paraphernalia. So that's kind of interesting to hear about their details.
The DC Measure 71, the measure would allow adults 21 and over to possess up to 2 ounces of marijuana and 6 plants, 3 of which can be mature. Households can grow up to 12 plants and 6 of which may be mature. Growers can possess the fruits of their harvest. Plants can only be grown indoors.
Yeah, that was what caught me. It can only be grown indoors. That's a trip. Washington, D.C., of course, you have to grow it mostly indoors with the weather, I guess, back there, but still, that's interesting. Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up, and we want to talk real fast about Hempstalk next weekend, the 27th and 28th in Portland. That's Hempstalk, S-T-L-K, hempstalk.org. It's going to be great. It's in the downtown waterfront park, right downtown. It's free. See you there, I hope. Bye.